Hello, welcome to our very short little tutorial. I'm going to use this image here. I'm going to open it with a piece of software called Gimp, which is a graphic image manipulation program. So we're going to use this instead of Photoshop, and the reason we're going to do that is because Photoshop is expensive and not all of you will have it, whereas Gimp here is completely free, is open source. So you can download it. If it's Gimp 2.8 here, it'll work on a Mac or it'll work on a PC, like I have here. So we're going to use this image here, and we're going to use this to, I'm picking this one because it's got elements of the floor in it, so we can cut them out and make the image, the background jet black. So when we were in the college, we used a piece of software called Photoshop, and in that we used what was called the magnetic lasso tool. So we're not going to use that. We're going to use this tool here. It's called the scissors select tool. Now, when I select it, I get to I get the properties of the tool here. So I'm going to select this one here called interactive boundary. Now, this works in a very similar way to the magnetic lasso tool that we used in the college. So I'm going to left click and then left click again and keep left clicking, and you'll see that it's drawn sort of the in-betweens, and that should actually follow the shape of the edge of the image underneath. Okay. And you can see that I can pause here, I can move up and down, and then continue on in here. And in this particular image, you can see I've made a slight mistake there. You can rectify things by, you can just pick this up and move it, and then it will adhere to the edge of your image. So when it's a very high contrast edge, it should give you a good line, so between sort of bright skin tone and a dark background. Okay. So we're going to try and select all around the character that we have here. And so all these kind of creases in the curtains, etc., we're going to get rid of all of them. And more importantly, we'll get rid of this floor. And so this side of the character is going to be a little bit more complicated to get. Now you can see they didn't quite work. I can add in extra points just by like sort of clicking on a line. It'll let me add in an extra point, and then it'll understand that I've moved on when I click beyond the last point. So it's a very clever little tool. The more time you spend, the better the results will be. What I would suggest to you is, when you're doing this, having it loose, having sort of this line slightly further away from the model in this instance here is probably more beneficial than having too tight sort of a line, because we don't want to lose any of the hair detail or any of the face. My computer's chugging away in the background there, so let's add in one more piece here. And then to get it to actually make the selection, we just hit the Enter key on the keyboard. So yeah, I'll go and do that now. So after we hit the Enter key, we've got our selection. And then in a very similar way to what we did in the college. Now you can see we've missed this bit here, but we'll come back and do that. We're going to go color, and then to a tool called levels. This is the same tool we used in the college. So if I move it to the left, things will get brighter. If I move it to the right, everything will get darker. And in this example here, we want it to be completely black. But just so you can see, if we wanted to, we could make this very white indeed, if you had a slightly brighter background. Okay, so let's bring that all the way over here. And what we should end up with is basically jet black. Okay, once we're happy with that, so we'll just check up the top. So all good. We're going to go OK. Now I'm going to go select and then none. Now I'm going to repeat the process only for this small section here. So the higher part here is plenty dark. It's just this floor area that we want to get rid of. So I'm going to zoom in. And we're going to go back to our scissors select tool. So we'll start here. And we only need to go that far. And enter. And we have our selection. Again, we're going to go color and levels and slide that all the way to the right. And it's gone dark. And now if we zoom back out, so if I click zoom out here, yeah, it'll let me select it anytime. Sorry, my computer's doing all sorts of rendering and weird stuff in the background. Yeah, that's the one we want. So we zoom out, and off we go. So, so that's the background done. So now I'm going to go select and none. And then the last thing we're going to look at is just kind of changing colors and affecting skin tone, etc. So this is actually it's a lovely photo, so I'm not going to do too much with it. I am going to zoom in on the face here and just going to have a look at how we might play around with some of the colors. First of all, in this color tab here, we've got color balance, so I can make everything far more red, which is, that's not a terribly good result there. But you can be more subtle. You can add in, whoops, that's not subtle at all. Add in small amounts more if you wanted to kind of add a particular type of look. So I'm going to go reset range. But what we're going to do is we're going to sort of use our color tools alongside the tool we used before. So this one here. So I'm just going to use the lips as an example. So I'm going to zoom in here so that we have a very good look at this, at the area that we're interested in. I'm going to select our scissors select tool and use a similar sort of technique to what we had before. So we're going to actually no, I'm going to hit escape and go back here. Yeah, so I was on the wrong tool there, sorry. So we're going to select our mouth. And again, if you use more points, you'll have more accuracy and get better results. And enter. So we've selected the lips, and now we can go tool, or not tools, go colors, and then we'll start with hue and saturation. So saturation is the amount of color. It's actually color with brightness, but if I desaturate everything, it becomes black and white. Now you can see actually in this is not a bad example of our selection isn't as good as it should be, so we've got a red outline. But we can use the saturation sort of, if it's too vivid, too bright, we can kind of bring it back a little bit. And then, like we did in class, we can use the hue tool to, push the colors a little bit. And if we're happy with that particular look, we'll hit OK. And then we can also use this color balance here, as we looked at before, if you wanted individual colors to be more pronounced, so add in more green or more yellow. And what's nice about this is we get shadows, midtones, and highlights. So the dark area of the image will get affected by shadows. So if this dark area here where the two lips are joined, if I increase this here, that's what will be affected. So not necessarily the brighter bits. The midtones are sort of the mid colors, so the most of the lips, and then the highlights will just be the bright bits. So these sort of highlights here. If I add in blue, you can see that the bright parts of the image, that's where that blue is added in. Okay, so they're sort of the basic tools we were looking at in the college. And you can see that if I go select and none, that's a very effective way to change the characteristics of your picture. And the last thing I want to show you is how to save something out of this program, out of Gimp. Normally when you use a piece of software, you go File, Save. If you go File, Save in this program, it will give you all sorts of funny things. You get this XCF format. So this is it trying to save things as a project where it retains all its layers and all the other things that you can do. And this program has layers in the same way that Photoshop does. But if you want to get the picture out, you go File, and then you choose this option here, Export As. And then if you remember we had a little chat about this in the class, the file extension that you want to pick, if you're going to use the image, is this one here, is a JPEG. And you can see it's .jpg. So give it a name, and it'll be .jpg, and then you hit Export. So I'll call this test and export. And if you wanted to, if you had multiple layers in this image, and this is the quality, so we'll have it full quality and export. And that's it, done there. If you wanted to, if you had layers and you wanted to export it and retain the layers, you do the same thing. You go Export As. Only this time, instead of selecting a JPEG, you'd select a Photoshop file, which is that one there, Photoshop image. And that would give us the same image, .psd. And if we had layers, there's a layer window, you can save the layers in it now. We're not going to worry about that for now. But as I said to you in the college, maybe we'll have another class before the end of the year where we can do a little bit more work. So hopefully that is helpful to you.